Insider, 97.3 ESPN Flyers insider Kevin Durso, is a strange week for the Flyers as well. They were in Tampa getting ready to play another playoff team in the Lightning when Gary Bettman said, hang on. Let's put a hold on this. Kevin, how are you?
Doing well, PT. How are you?
As well as can be in a strange situation, right? Talk about, if you would, the Flyers, the hottest team in hockey, and all of a sudden their momentum has to just come to a complete halt because the season is suspended. How long do you think it'll be suspended?
Yeah, I mean, it's anybody's guess at this point. The one thing I do like about what the NHL has done so far in this is they really are not trying to put a timeline on anything. They're really taking it day by day. Gary Bettman will not come out and say something like the other leagues have done. Major League Baseball pushed back and basically already said we're going to delay the regular season by 2 weeks, and spring training's over. The NBA said we'll reevaluate in roughly 30 days. MLS said the same thing. And Gary Bettman's not putting a timeline on it. He's looking at potentially at least a week of having the players be self-quarantined, not for any major reason of concern, just to take the precautions by doing something like that, and hopefully in a matter of a week or two being able to reevaluate the situation and see if they can't get back to at least trying to be able to get into practice facilities to maintain conditioning. That way the sooner everything seems to clear up, the sooner they can get right back on the ice and start playing these games at the most meaningful time of your season too. So there's really not going to be a good timeline. The goal sounds like hopefully maybe 2 weeks is the best possible case scenario. And then, who knows where it could go from there. They asked every team in the league to give their building availability for until the end of July. And that gives you kind of an idea of how far out the league is looking to be prepared to see where this goes and to try to have a game plan in place to be able to get every part of this season in, not just the playoffs and not just awarding the Stanley Cup at the end of the year, but to also try to allow these teams to be able to finish the final anywhere between 11 and 15 games of the regular season as well. It was kind of all mixed up for every team. There were some that had as few as 10 or 11 games left. There were others that have upwards of 15 left. The Flyers were sitting with 13 games left as of Thursday morning, and everything got shut down. And it is obviously was the most critical time. You're talking a big game against Tampa was on tap. They had several other playoff teams on the schedule. They just completed a very legitimate playoff-style game on Tuesday night, and everything was business as usual on that Tuesday night. The building was full. The atmosphere was great. The intensity was very playoff-like, and then all of a sudden it just comes to a screeching halt.
What was the Boston game like? Because your media colleague, Mike Sealski, wrote a big column saying the Flyers fans thumbed their noses at the coronavirus in fear on Tuesday night. What was it like in the building there? Did you sense any people were talking about coronavirus? Or, I guess the media thing had changed differently, right? Because the players had to come to the table and you weren't in the dressing room afterwards. But did you sense, what was the mood like in the building Tuesday night? And did you sense anything different?
Not at all. As a matter of fact, I have a friend of mine who's a Boston fan who asked me to kind of give him an update on how everything was going around the start of the game, and I sent him a picture of the crowd which for a Tuesday night right at opening faceoff at 7 o'clock was as full as I've seen the building at that moment of a Tuesday night game all season long. And I captioned the text with "What virus?" Like it seems like no one was worried about it at that time. And I felt that during that game throughout, the Flyers played a really strong first two periods against Boston, and you could just get the sense that up until the Bruins finally broke the ice and scored the first goal, and the only one they were really going to need in that game late in the second period, that crowd was waiting for any reason to take the roof off the place. It was going to be absolutely a crazy environment if the Flyers were able to get that first goal. And I tweeted that toward the end of the first period where they were playing such a good first period that it would be devastating for them if they couldn't get the first goal of that game because they were off to such a good start. The building was very into it, and it was exactly what you wanted it to be. It was exactly, it felt like a playoff game. You had people after, several of my colleagues up in the box were saying this. I certainly was thinking it myself as well, that, this looks like a playoff series. And wouldn't this be a great 7-game series down the road, which, everybody who has followed this season close enough and who knows the playoff structure of the NHL, you do the math. These two teams wouldn't face each other in a playoff series until the conference finals. So it's where everybody kind of has shifted the mindset. The Flyers are that good of a team right now that you can set that as kind of a goal, that they had a shot to be in that position. Boston certainly is there as well, being at the top of the league. And, you got that feeling in the building. It was definitely the atmosphere you wanted to see. At that given moment, I think everybody was fine, kind of throwing caution to the wind. And very quickly, within the next 48 hours, you saw how quickly the mindset of not just the players, not just the sports leagues, but fans as well. I think that everything for everybody, this shifted very quickly, and there's a realization that this is what needed to be done in this current moment to be able to ensure that we can hopefully continue to get back to everything in the near future. It's a step that just had to be taken to get back to this when the time is right, when everything seems safe enough to not only allow the players to play the game, but to also allow the fans back into the building, because it's just not going to be the same at this time of year if you have to take the fans out of the picture as well. It's what the players live for, and it's what builds the excitement of those games. So if this is what needs to be done to make sure that we can get back to not just this season, but seasons in the future, to have it be the way it's always been, it's definitely a worthwhile step.
Kevin Durso with us here on the Pete Thompson Show on 97.3 ESPN. He's our 973 ESPN Flyers insider. Follow him on Twitter at Kevin_Durso. And I think, Kevin, that's probably the most disappointing thing, that it had to be suspended for a while, is that, if you're a diehard Flyers fan, and full disclosure, I am, it's been a long time since the Flyers have had a season like this. I mean, Money Puck made them the unlikely Stanley Cup favorite, in their statistical model. You see that, you think, oh, maybe, and they weren't supposed to be this good. It's an unexpected benefit of a hot streak in February and now March, and you think, okay, they could be on the roll they need to be on, and all of a sudden the brakes have to be applied.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I remember talking to a colleague of mine in the press box over the course of some of the years that were more trying. And, this is something that for me, as someone who covers a team, it's not the diehard fandom that comes into play, but I do enjoy being at that environment, being at the arena, being able to watch the best players in the league come in and out of the building constantly, and be able to sit there and say, this is what I get to do. And I remember saying something that, because everybody would love to be able to, who covers the sport, would love to be able to cover a team that's successful and has that chance to win. And it just creates for a more fun time. People are more interested in it, obviously, all of that. And I remember saying to that person at that time, there were several years in a row where it just wasn't the best for the Flyers, and it was trying times. I remember saying, until it's not fun to come to the rink anymore, though, I'll still continue to do it, even in the years that are the toughest. It's still fun to be here. And obviously this was turning into a year where it was really fun to be there. Now, there's two schools of thought, and it's an article that I'm going to have ready to go for 97.3 ESPN.com this morning later on, is that there's two sides of perspective to this. The first is that disappointment. For every fan who's been watching this team for the better part of the last decade, and in particular who's followed them from the beginning and knows what it's like to see this team be successful, you're disappointed. It was finally fun again to be able to see this team have a chance to be very successful in the playoffs. The other side of the perspective, though, is, you've got to consider the human element of it, not just for the current players on the team who are in top physical condition, but think about what the Flyers have been playing for most of this season, going back to December, and that's, Oscar Lindblom's condition, and in his particular condition, this is a very serious virus that could do some serious damage to people in his condition. So if you've been following that and you're on the Oscar Strong bandwagon and have been supporting that all year, keep that in mind and understand why this is so important to take everything and put it on hold for a little while.
No doubt. Kevin Durso with us, our 97.3 ESPN Flyers insider. Follow his work on our website at 973ESPN.com. Follow him on Twitter at Kevin_Durso. And before I say goodbye, Kevin, I'll point out that 1980, 1985, 1987, 1997 and 2010. My girlfriend's son, who's been watching the Flyers with me the past 5, 7, 8 years, 10, I guess now. I'm trying to think how long I've been with my girlfriend. He's turned to me one time and said, my God, you've seen the Flyers in 5 Stanley Cup finals and they lost them all. All right, buddy, we're up against the break. We got to go. We'll catch up with you soon. Kevin, thank you.
Thanks, PT.
All right, it's the Pete Thompson Show. Back after this.